Welcome back to another bonus episode of the Poultry Keepers Podcast. I'm your host, Rip Stalvey, and today we're diving into a topic that's been shaping the way breeders evaluate their birds for more than a century: how feather development affects type. Now, if you're thinking, feathers? Aren't those just for show? Well, you're not alone. A lot of folks think feathers are purely about looks, but the truth is, feather development plays a much deeper role in how we interpret structure, maturity, and overall quality in our birds. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're going to be taking inspiration from a classic article written by Arthur O. Schilling, a highly respected poultry judge and one of the best known poultry illustrators of his time. This article was written back in 1915. Yes, 1915, over 100 years ago. It's called How Feather Development Affects Type. It originally ran in the American poultry world, and it's still one of the best takes on the subject. We'll go through Schilling's ideas, bring in some modern perspectives, and talk about how all of this applies to you as a breeder, an exhibitor, or just someone who wants to understand conformation a little bit better. So let's start with something fundamental. Feathers don't just cover the bird, they shape how we see the bird. You can think of feathers like a soft outer shell that either highlights or hides the frame underneath. For example, soft feathered birds like Orpingtons, Cochins, Brahmas tend to look bigger, fuller, and rounder than they actually are. That's because of all the fluffy feathering. It fills in the gaps and smooths over edges. So what you see might look like depth and mass, but when you get your hands on the bird, it can tell you a very different story. Now contrast that with hard feather breeds like Old English Game, Modern Game, or Leghorn. These birds have tight, sleek plumage that clings to their body. What you see is pretty much what you get because there's not much feather to hide behind. Weaknesses or strengths are immediately visible. So here's the first takeaway. If you're evaluating type, especially for a show or when making your breeding selections, it's not enough to rely on your eyes. You have to handle the bird. What looks broad might actually be narrow. What looks lean might actually be well framed. Every breed comes with its own feather type. Understanding that difference, well, is pretty important. A bird that looks beautifully balanced in one breed might appear too light or too chunky in another. Breed standards matter, and so does your ability to interpret what feathers are telling you or hiding from you. Another point that Schilling made, which still rings true today, is that early feathering can create an illusion of maturity. Birds that feather in quickly, especially pullets, often look more finished at 4 or 5 months old. Now, that can be tempting, especially for early season competitions, but here's the catch. Just because a bird looks put together early doesn't mean it has a skeletal maturity or long-term quality you want in a breeder. Late feathering birds, on the other hand, may look awkward, patchy, or immature for months, but if you handle them and give them time, you might find a deeper frame, better bone, and more overall potential. So patience is the key here. Don't get tricked by prettier sooner. Evaluate structure, not just the feather finish. And let's not forget that males and females develop differently too. Pullets tend to feather in faster and more evenly. At a glance, they often look more balanced and refined, while cockerels not so much. They usually feather in slower, especially in the hackle and saddle feathers. That can leave them looking long, skinny, or just plain awkward, even when they're genetically excellent. So if you're culling young males because they don't look as good as their sisters early on, remember that some of your best breeders might be those late blooming cockerels. Learn to judge them based on frame and not feathers alone. Molting adds another layer to the challenge. During a molt, birds often look completely different. Soft feathered birds often look messy and small. Hard feathered birds may seem sharper or even too lean. But here's the thing, molt is temporary, structure is not. Let me repeat that. Molt is temporary, structure is not. A trained eye knows how to look past a rough molt and evaluate the frame underneath. Plus, how a bird comes through the molt can tell you a lot. Good feather regrowth depends on nutrition, health, and genetics. So the molt isn't just a reset, it's also a reveal. Feather development isn't just visual, it's genetic. Feather texture, feathering timing, and placement can be passed down. If you're consistently selecting birds that feather appropriately for their breed type and standard, you're reinforcing good traits. And over time, your flock's quality improves, not just in looks, but in type and utility. But if you're only selecting based on how birds look at 4 or 5 months without handling or evaluating the frame, you could end up with birds that look nice early, but fail to carry that good structure long term. So let's wrap this up with what I think is Schilling's most powerful reminder. Train your eyes and your hands. Train your eyes and your hand. Anyone can learn to appreciate a pretty bird. We all do. But to be a serious breeder or an effective judge, you've got to feel for width of back, depth of breast, and length of keel. You have to go beyond birds' appearances. That means picking up birds, comparing siblings, watching how feathers create an optical illusion, and talking with folks who've been doing this for a while. So train yourself to look through the feathers, not just at them. Hey, thanks again for joining me on this bonus episode of the Poultry Keepers Podcast. If this conversation helps you see your birds a little bit differently, do me a favor. Share it with a friend who loves poultry as much as you do. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss a future episode of the Poultry Keepers Podcast. Now you can head over to www.thepoultrykeeperspodcast.com for lots more information. Until next time, keep learning, keep breeding with purpose, and never stop improving the birds you love.